Hey, Foot Clan, the hour has come. Your fantasy football drafts are taking place, many of those, in the next couple of weeks. And if you're not digging deep in the Ultimate Draft Kit, you are missing out on prime info that will have you ready to dominate your fantasy football draft. It is jam-packed. We're talking all of our 2017 season projections for each and every player, 100-plus player profile videos, sleepers, breakouts, busts, and values, tons more, including this thing's updated every day. This is not out of date like some old busted magazine. We update our rankings all the time, and they are instantly available in the cheat sheets, in the rankings. You don't want to miss it, so give yourself the tools to execute a perfect draft and set the foundation for a fantasy championship. Get instant access right now at ultimatedraftkit.com. That is ultimatedraftkit.com.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the Play Draft Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome in. Welcome into the show.
It's a show. Welcome into the show.
Tuesday. It's a Tuesday show, August 15th.
If it smells like a Tuesday.
I said the hour is here. The time has come. I had a friend on Facebook the other day. They said, oh, great, it's that time of year. People start talking about football again.
Oh, one of those?
One of those guys. And
Get out of here.
I said, look.
Said blocked.
I said, buddy, you're in trouble because football is here. And we're back, the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, 5 days a week, right in your pocket. Great show today. Top 10 quarterbacks on the episode. Also have a great quick question. It's pointing towards preseason week 2. I'm curious your guys' answer on it. Follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/thefantasyfootballers. The website's thefantasyfootballers.com. So I'm going to jump right in. I'm not going to dilly-dally whatsoever. What player do you believe has the biggest rise or fall in ADP by next week? So basically, project a player you think will do something this week in camp, most likely preseason week 2, that may result in a big rise or a big fall in ADP. So if you're drafting him today, maybe you get a bargain. Maybe you're overpaying.
Yeah, I'll bring someone up that actually, I mean, even if he doesn't continue, which I think he will, you need to be aware he is in the middle of a, Mount Everest plummet down from the summit. And
wow,
that's Andrew
that sounds
Luck.
Intense.
Yeah, a lot of people have died this way.
Just a Mount Everest plummet down from the summit.
Yeah. So Andrew Luck right now, because of his shoulder injury, what's going to happen is the closer we get to week 1, they're never going to say, guess what, he's starting week 1. If he starts week 1, they're not going to say that until the week of at the absolute earliest. So that means when you draft, you're going to be a week out or 2 weeks out or 3 weeks out from the start of the NFL season, and Andrew Luck, you don't even know if he's playing. He's currently injured. His ADP is going to fall. If you look at the end of July to now, he has dropped 2 full rounds, and the thing is the reason he's dropping isn't about to change. It's not. He's not going to be back, practicing fully tomorrow for the next week or so.
Not expecting any TMZ video of him throwing the ball out in the backyard. Showing his arm strength?
Yeah, I'm sure there's some of that, but that will come hand in hand with more reports saying we're unsure about Andrew Luck's status for week 1. And that'll win. Negativity always wins.
I will put a little bonus onto your pick there of Andrew Luck. I don't think we'll see Jack Doyle move up at all in this offseason, but Eric Swoop, he's injured. He's week to week. Doyle is primed to be that sleeper tight end candidate.
Love it.
And I don't think anything's moving because Andrew Luck is a question mark. So, Mike, do you have a pick, or should I give you mine? Okay, go ahead.
My guy, because I'm going to project something to happen this weekend. This player, I talked about him yesterday. I would kind of just mentioning that he looked good and he looked ready for the season. C.J. Anderson gets to play the San Francisco 49ers. If he's going to put in a little bit more time with the starters, I think that when people see, okay, he's healthy, he's ready to go, and I don't expect Jamal Charles to do anything of note, then I think that he will be able to rise up at least around, because he's, as of right now, on Fantasy Football Calculator, he's going in the 5th round, and he's a starting running back. So it wouldn't shock me to see him put up a pretty solid performance against a bad defense, and thus 4. I don't know if that's
4.
Thus
nailed it.
Whatever I meant to say, he's going to move up.
I think therefore would work.
Yeah, therefore would have been good.
Henceforth.
I'm going to go with Cameron Meredith. I think you'll see flashes from Cameron Meredith in week 2. He was sucking up some pretty bad targets from Glennon, but I think
it was dropping targets.
I think they figure it out this weekend, and you see some big plays from Meredith in the first quarter, and I think you start to hear the first rumblings of the stuff that we have said about Meredith for a while, which is he could be a viable wide receiver 2 candidate. So I'll go with that. I want to let everybody know we are giving away a signed David Johnson helmet, full-size helmet.
Are we sure we want to tell people that?
Well, the cat's out of the bag.
Similar to the centerpiece of our set.
Yeah, you can see that on YouTube. We're giving away an autographed David Johnson helmet, and you can enter at footclangiveaway.com. It's free to enter. You can check out the different ways you can enter over there. We like to do a couple of giveaways every month. We do one on the show, and then we do a bonus. An extra giveaway with things like trophies and more autograph gear and DFS passes, all that kind of stuff. We do that over at jointhefoot.com as well. Just our way of giving back to the listener because we like you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Right?
That's
true.
That's fair. Mm-hmm. All right, so no big news. We're going to jump right into the rankings here, and let's talk quarterbacks.
Quarterbacks.
All right. Top 10 quarterbacks, our consensus rankings. So we'll talk about where we each individually have players, what to expect from them in 2017, what last season looked like, and whether we expect repeats to happen. Number 1, our consensus number 1 quarterback is, of course, Jared Goff.
Oh, he's good.
Jared Goff.
Pick number 1 for a reason, people.
If he's won in the NFL, he's won in FFL. Welcome to the show. If it's your first time here, the real number 1 is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is our consensus number 1. We all have a number 1 across the board. Right now, his average draft position is late 2nd, and last year, what can you say, 40 touchdowns for Aaron Rodgers, ho-hum, over 4,400 yards, and a minuscule 7 interceptions. Here's the headliner for me. People don't remember this. You know who the 3rd leading rusher is at the quarterback position?
Last year.
It's Aaron Rodgers. Tyrod Taylor, Colin Kaepernick, and then bam, 51 attempts, 386 rushing yards. Aaron Rodgers. Those are the kind of numbers that we'd probably say, hey, you know, if Russell Wilson can get up to around 400 yards, he offers you that beautiful baseline. We don't talk about the rushing yardage for Aaron Rodgers very much because he gives you so many other things to talk about. But what is there to say?
Well, I think we should say this. He is the number 1 quarterback because he will almost for sure. I mean, if he plays 16 games, he's going to finish as about the number 1 or number 2 quarterback. That's usually what he does if he's got
and that's
Jordy
since
Nelson
2008.
on the team.
369 rushing, 369.
Yes,
but
but
I had put down 386. I apologize.
I did want to bring up the fact that we won't see. I don't imagine that we will see the Aaron Rodgers we saw last year. Not to that level. Repeat. He had his career high in attempts, his career high in completions, his career high in rushing yardage, all come last year when the running backs all got injured and they ended up having to take a wide receiver and say, hey, you're our running back because we don't have any. They had to throw the ball more than the Green Bay Packers usually like. That's obviously not to say Aaron Rodgers is not great, but you can't just look at last year's numbers and say this is what I'm going to get. I expect that he will have more down to normal Aaron Rodgers numbers which is still great.
It's the 1 or 2.
That's what I'm saying. He's still 1 or 2,
okay.
But it can't just be the same amount of output that he had last year if their running game is that much better.
Yeah, since 2011, when Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson played 12 or more games together, he averages 4,400 yards and 40 touchdowns. So even if his volume comes down, Aaron Rodgers' game is actually efficiency. It's not high volume. He's not a Drew Brees 5,000-yard passer. That's just
a bonus when he gets in that situation.
Right.
He still provides quarterback 1 value.
He threw the ball 62 times inside the 10-yard line, which is unbelievable. And maybe that goes down a little bit if they can find a running game. But it's Aaron Rodgers is the best, and he's going to
they're going to put it in his
throw.
hands.
Yeah, and they give him scoring possibilities frequently.
QB 1 through 6. He finished inside that range from 1 through 6.
1 through 6? Okay.
Yeah, QB 1 to 6, 47% of the time. So when you talk about consistency, difference-making position, tell somebody why they shouldn't be drafting Rodgers at 210. Tell them why you wouldn't draft him at 210, because you can't talk that long about how good and how much of a difference maker he is and how consistent since 2008 he's finished inside the top 7 without giving the other side of that equation.
Yeah, well, the difference is just strategy of we talk about this show, streaming a quarterback, waiting until the later rounds, and that's just because the way that fantasy football works. And the NFL is a passing league now. Each quarterback throws it 20-plus times a game, and it's not shocking at all to see low-level quarterbacks throw 200 to 250 yards and 2 scores on a given week, especially when you know that they're going to be up against a bad secondary. So while Aaron Rodgers is the best, he won't be on any of my teams because I can replace him. 40 quarterbacks last year posted at least 1 week where they were a top 12 scorer. And just so we are on the same page, yes, that's more than there are teams in the NFL, because that's how reliable it is to look at a matchup of a quarterback versus a bad defense. You can say, well, this guy's a backup. Doesn't matter. He's a backup who's going to touch the ball on every single snap, and he's going to throw a large amount of times. And it's just because of where the rules are in the NFL and the rules how they work in fantasy football, quarterbacks are just devalued. But if you want the best one, Aaron Rodgers is the best one.
Let's talk about the only quarterback in the top 8 to not play all 16 games last year. That was Andrew Luck. We talked about him earlier with the concerns about the shoulder and maybe being available in week 1. However, that knocks him back into the 7th round. And if that is just fear that is not grounded in anything, let's just pretend he misses week 1, okay? Starts the season week 2 against Arizona. Andrew Luck in the 7th round seems like a steal. Am I wrong? 4,200 yards, 31 touchdowns, and missed a game last year.
Yeah, Andrew Luck in the 7th round I think is going to be a good value. I expect that he could fall all the way in drafts to, where he's going behind Matt Ryan in leagues, because people are going to be afraid to pull that trigger on a guy that's injured. But what you need to realize is Andrew Luck has missed games before, and he's come back strong. Over the last 3 years, all this love we're giving to Aaron Rodgers, rightfully so, but over the last 3 years, no quarterback has finished with more percent of their games as a quarterback 1 than Andrew Luck at 73.68%. That means if you are going to end up grabbing one of those earlier round quarterbacks, you need to make sure, unlike, the Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisbergers, where they might finish as, the 3rd best quarterback, but half of the games are going to be great, half of the games are going to be bad. When you invest early in a quarterback, you want a guy who's going to do it week in, week out with consistency, whether they're home, on the road, that type. So I think Andrew Luck is actually the kind of, when you combine draft strategy with high-end quarterback, he's one of those guys that actually makes sense for helping you win a championship, because you're not giving up a 2nd-round pick. Right now, on average, you're giving up a 7th-round pick, so you're not losing that much, and what you are getting is a guy that's going to be very reliable.
Here's do you have any concern? Do you have any concern with Andrew Luck that last year Indianapolis gave up nearly 3 sacks a game? Andrew Luck took 41 sacks last year. He's injured. He's going to likely miss week 1 because of damage he sustained from getting hit. Now,
it's probably not improved there either. I mean,
right, and it certainly has not. But so are we talking a high injury risk with Andrew Luck?
So. I don't think so. I mean, this surgery was to repair that labrum, and I think you have to look at it. He's also one of the most mobile quarterbacks in football. You just talked about Aaron Rodgers. Well, he was 7th in rushing yards at the position. He had over 350 rushing yards. And what you lean on with Andrew Luck more than almost any other quarterback is the big play. I mean, he fits the mold of a fantasy big play guy. 11% of his attempts over 20 yards down the field in terms of his attempts to Hilton. Now you've got Moncrief there. You have Aiken. 7.8 yards per attempt. I think you hope that he continues to do what he's had to do, which is they don't have a running game, much like Aaron Rodgers didn't last year. You have to put it in his hands. Their defense wasn't that good, and you have to hope he can stay upright. And
that's what I mean, though. You're hoping he can stay upright when he got hit. He got sacked 41 times, and he puts himself. He's certainly mobile, but he puts himself in more danger because his running style is not like Aaron Rodgers, where Rodgers won't take hits. Andrew Luck is willing to do that because he's so big. And I'm just saying that even in the 7th round, that sounds like it could be a great value for a guy who can be the quarterback 1. But the last 2 years,
you have to draft another quarterback if you draft Andrew Luck. That's the weird thing right now is if you think he's going to miss a week, you probably have to take a guy in the later rounds and have that insurance at least for the first couple of weeks to see how he is.
7 games played in 2015, missed a game last year, is going to miss a game this year. Like, is it getting to the point where his body just can't bounce back as well? I'm just asking the question.
I don't think it's to that point. Okay. That's my honest answer. He's 3 years in a row played 16 games. And then last year he only missed. But
that's what I mean. Like
last year he only missed one game, and he got the surgery to get better. I think that they're being slow with him to make sure that re-injury doesn't happen. I don't worry about injury with nearly any quarterback.
Who do you worry about more, Cam Newton or Andrew Luck getting hurt?
Cam, because he is running and taking different type of hits.
Likely
both
Cam,
had shoulder surgery in the offseason. Both get beat up.
I just have this fear that we will be having this conversation again next offseason.
I hope not.
Yeah. Well, certainly we hope not. But
is there an argument to be made for this next guy to be number 1 overall? Tom Brady, number 3 in our consensus ranks. Jason, you got him at number 2. Mike, number 4. I got him at 3. I mean, where do you begin talking about Tom Brady? I think the most insane statistic is 2 turnovers on the year by Tom Brady in total.
Seriously?
Yeah, I mean, that's 0.4%. Derek Carr was the second best with 9 total turnovers. He had 2.
That's pretty good.
Tom Brady was unbelievable. You actually mentioned earlier that the only quarterback in the top 8 we were going to talk about that missed games was Andrew Luck. That's not true. Tom Brady.
Well, but he didn't finish his top 12 last year. That's what Andy was saying.
Sure. Tom Brady missed 4 games, and had he not missed those games, Tom Brady would probably be going as the number 1 quarterback off the board because 2 years ago he was the number 2 best quarterback in fantasy, and last year on a per-game basis, he was as good as it gets. Now this year, you add weapons to his arsenal. He gets, pretty much every single receiver he had. Gronk is now healthy. You add Brandon Cooks.
Again, we say that every year.
Sure, but, I mean, we know that some years he has Gronk for 16. Last year he didn't. This year is going to be even better. And with Brandon Cooks, I think there's a reason that I've had Tom Brady as my number 2 quarterback from the get-go. He's a guy, if I'm in a redraft league and I don't care about age or having him around for any kind of long term, they're ready. The Patriots are the type of team that will set the world on fire if they can. They will score.
You took the words
45.
out of my mouth. I was wondering if we're trending towards seeing a world, that was my words exactly, a world on fire type of year. You had his highest yards per attempt last year since 2011. You add a guy that's only going to increase that in Brandon Cooks. I mean, you're talking about 2nd in the league in yards per attempt last year, only behind Matt Ryan, who lit it up with Gabriel and Julio. He was ahead of Andrew Luck in that department. He threw a touchdown every 15 passes last season. So like Mike was saying, the model of efficiency at the quarterback position, is he your kind of – I mean, he's going in the 3rd round right now.
That's the problem.
So he's being drafted right around Aaron Rodgers.
No Foot Clan member will be drafting Tom Brady in a redraft because
I hope not.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to the show, you know the metrics and the stats that talk about the poor investment in giving up one of those high-end running back or wide receivers to go to a replaceable position at quarterback. So that's the tough part.
If I were in a league and I owned Aaron Rodgers, and I thought I could go trade him in a redraft for Tom Brady plus, because of the name of Aaron Rodgers and because of Brady's age, I would be looking to make that move. I don't think you're going to see a very significant difference between them at all. I think you have the chance that Brady goes absolutely crazy, and I think you can get value on top of him for an Aaron Rodgers situation. So I'd be looking to do that because I think Brady has every bit of the chance to finish at number 1 this year.
Yeah, these top guys is just splitting hair, and even with the next guy too.
It's almost more about it's not about are they good and how will they perform and how have they performed. It's just about what do they cost you in your draft? What do you have to give up? And that's why I like Andrew Luck, because I don't have to give up what I do for the other 3 big guys. All right. Before we get on,
no Drew Brees for you, huh?
No. Before we get to Drew Brees, I want to talk about today's sponsor. You've heard me share how much I love them before, but Indochino, they are the best tailor-made, perfectly customized suits to you. You're not buying this off of a rack. You're not going to have the bunched up collars that look, like you want to, like you're wearing daddy's suit. You know what I mean? If you've got a wedding to go to or you've got another special occasion, maybe at your job you wear suits, for a living, Indochino is a great place to get a true custom tailored suit for yourself. It's very easy. You go to Indochino.com or drop by one of their 9 North American showrooms, and you can pick from hundreds of fabrics and patterns. You can customize it from the lapels to the pocket styles. You kick back, relax, and you're ready to go. And right now, any premium Indochino suit you can get for just $379 at Indochino.com when you enter the Footballers code at checkout. That's 50% off the regular price for a made-to-measure premium suit plus free shipping. It's Indochino.com, promo code Footballers. You'll never have to worry about badly fitting suits or expensive trips to the tailor again. You'll look like $1 million.
We want to thank Pristine Auction for sponsoring the show. They are the best sports memorabilia site of all time, anywhere you name it. Pristine Auction is the go-to. They have hundreds of new auctions every single day. There is always a reason to jump on Pristine Auction, which I may or may not be doing it right now because I want to see what's going on. I want to see the new stuff that they add every day. They have whenever we get our 100% authenticated signatures on the jerseys, right? Like we have our man Tevin Coleman up. If you flip on the YouTube, you can see him in the frame. A few days ago, personal favorite of mine, we had Jake Butt. We had him up on the screen because you can get all kinds of these players. And just the other day, I said, you know what? I'm going to invest. So I grabbed a Corey Davis. Corey Davis signed autographed jersey because I was able to get it for first a little sneaky price because Corey Davis is yet to explode. I'm investing in my future and my family. So check out Pristine
Just like
Auction.
Tennessee did.
That's right. It's Pristine auction.com. You make a completely free account. It's always free to bid. When you make that free account, let them know that the Fantasy Footballers sent you.
All right, Mike is right. There's not a lot to talk about with these front half quarterbacks. You know their names. You know what they're going to do. So I do want to save us some time to get into some of these later guys.
But this is my number 2 guy.
But Drew Brees is Mike's number 2, and let me read you some numbers.
Drew Brees!
This is from 2007 on, where he finished in fantasy football. Mind you, 16 games played in every year, except for I think one he had 15 games played. 5, 1, 2, 6, 2, 1, 2, 6, 6, 3.
Yep. That's a nice song.
You know what you get. It's you're done. And it's not like he's dropping off. He led the league in passing yards. He led the league in attempts, and he had an insane 73% completion percentage. The only blemish on Drew Brees, one of maybe 2, one would be home road split. The other one would be 15 interceptions, which was 7th most in the league. But when you're throwing the ball 673 times, it's going to happen, right?
Yeah, well, in his home road splits, look, they exist. He's 7 points. Since 2012, he's 7 points better at home. That's okay. I can deal with that for Drew Brees. It's not Big Ben levels of the home road split, and I'm not going to let one pimple on my nose, I'm not going to stop that. Let that stop me from going to the prom and being the best with Drew Brees. So I love him. I think that of the big quarterbacks, he's the one who I think has the highest potential to finish as a top 3 quarterback mixed in.
You want him in the 5th?
With the lower ADP. I probably don't want him in the 5th, but I'm just saying of the guys we're talking about who the question marks on Drew Brees, while I'd love the Andrew Luck value, there's a lot of question marks, so I'm not adding him into this, but of Rodgers, Brady, Brees. Right. I will take Brees. He's the latest of them and has just as much chance as Brady and Rodgers to finish as the number 2 or number 1 guy.
I feel like if you grab Drew Brees, you have to be running 2 quarterbacks, because while he will finish as, a top 6 quarterback and very well will finish as a top 3 quarterback, while he's done that, take the last 2 years as a sample size. The last 2 years, here's some quarterbacks who have a higher percentage of their games finishing as a quarterback 1. You have Tyrod Taylor, Kirk Cousins, Andy Dalton, Ben Roethlisberger, Dak Prescott, and then the big 3 that we already mentioned on the show. So,
and how long is that?
That's over the last 2 years. So over the last 2 years,
that's cheating throwing Dak in. He's only played a year.
Oh, well, sure, but I mean his percentage was great. So take Dak out. The point is, really the 3 guys that matter to me are Kirk Cousins, Andy Dalton, and Tyrod Taylor. Those are guys you're getting in the double-digit rounds, and they have just as high a percentage chance of finishing as a quarterback 1 as,
but not top 5.
Yeah, their upside is certainly when they hit, they're not hitting like Drew Brees. Drew Brees is going to go out there and throw you the 5-touchdown, 400-yard game. He'll win you a week. That's why I'm just saying, if you do take Drew Brees, I feel like you need to invest in a second quarterback. And
that's a bold statement.
Yeah,
that is a bold prescription.
I can say this from
doctor.
last year. Last year I had Drew Brees, and about half the games I didn't want to play him. And if I didn't, I would have helped my team.
All right, we'll move on.
Okay. Oh no!
Oh, what's happening?
Dear diary. I can't convince my friend Jason to love Matt Ryan.
I don't feel like this is
Matt
not
Ryan
sad, though.
Is number 5 in our ranks. He has Julio and Gabriel and Freeman and Coleman and Hooper and Sanu. He completed more 40-plus yard plays than anybody in the league. He had more 20-plus yard plays than anybody in the league. He had more yards per attempt than anybody in the league.
Some people are stupid,
but
Andy.
he won't accept them. He won't accept him into the elite. And I don't know what to do. He calls it an outlier. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
That was a big entry into the diary. That was a few pages.
Yeah. All right, Jay, sing it to us. 5,000 yards, 38 touchdowns, 7 picks. I think we know the tale, but he's going in the 6th round in PPR leagues.
Yeah, I mean, I would never draft Matt Ryan in the 6th round of a PPR league, because I don't see him as.
I thought you were going to say I don't like points.
I don't see him as a truly elite fantasy quarterback. I mean, everything you just named, of all the incredible statistics, you can paint that either direction. You've said so many times, Andy, on other players, you don't like when a guy sets career highs pretty much across the board and has their highest touchdowns and their highest yards and pretty much their best season of their entire career, especially when it's deep into the career. When this isn't like, oh, maybe he took that 3rd-year leap forward.
Brooks, do I say that? Have I said that before?
It's just the implication that they will not do that again.
Brooks is shaking his head no. He said I never said that before.
Okay, well, you have certainly said it before. Mike, has Andy talked about he doesn't like when a guy has career highs?
I don't know verbatim, but I know what you mean, because when you set a career high, the next year you get drafted with certain expectations.
But is he being drafted like that? Like, if the 6th round is not being drafted that way, it would be the 3rd round with Tom Brady.
With a quarterback.
Because he finished 2.
With the quarterback.
Andrew Luck is 7th round right now.
Andrew, come on.
You can't use Andrew Luck as
That's
the
terrible.
Example.
Andrew Luck is
7th round. He's hurt. That's why. He was a 5th round guy.
Andrew Luck was a 5th round guy.
Right. I'm saying, and that's my point. Matt Ryan's a 6th round guy. That's the value. You proved my point. Otherwise,
Dalton
he'd be drafted
is a 14th round guy.
We're not arguing the late round guys yet, but
I just don't. None of the arguments make sense.
All right, here's an argument.
Just
let me
get this out. Quarterbacks, you see it every year. Well, nearly every year. Whoever was last year's number 1 quarterback, they are drafted as the first quarterback off the board the following year.
Yes,
that happens with Rodgers. That happened with Cam Newton.
Brady.
When guys do that, they skyrocket in next year's draft. Meanwhile, Matt Ryan has the pessimism already baked into his ADP because he's
apparently
not.
I'm
will
surprised.
Not be the first quarterback.
No, he's being drafted behind.
Go back to your belittling of elite Matt Ryan.
Sure, it's all about the touchdowns for me. All about
he had
the touchdowns.
Too many.
Yes, yes he did. His per 16 game pace over his entire career was 26 touchdowns. He threw 38 touchdowns last year. Let me read you some of the names of guys that caught touchdowns, okay? You had DJ Talavia, Joshua Perkins,
like
Patrick DeMarco, Levine Toilolo, Aldrick Robinson. These are guys now who caught 2 each. You had Justin Hardy with 4 touchdowns, Taylor Gabriel with 6. I'm just saying.
He sounds like a benevolent quarterback.
I
Very
know.
benevolent.
Where was he for the previous decade of his career?
I got a hot stat for you.
Because did he not have a bunch of those?
Since 2016, he's averaged 38 touchdowns per game.
You can have him. You can have him. And if you think that he's gonna throw 38
I'm
touchdowns
just
a game,
having fun. Look,
I will draft him and trade him.
Here's something I actually have said. No words put in my mouth. Look, I've told Jason last time we debated Matt Ryan. Look, when you come right down to it, asking him to repeat, it's pretty much going to be impossible. Asking him to have a very, very good year at a 6th-round ADP, I don't think is unreasonable. I'm surprised he's not being drafted with all this hype baked into him. I don't know. What happens? Let me ask you this. What happens if they hold on and win the Super Bowl? Is that enough of a difference in people's mind? The Super Bowl champion, number 2 fantasy quarterback coming into this year, I wonder if he goes up 2 rounds.
He probably would.
Yeah.
But now he's a loser.
We're fickle people, Andy.
We are. All right, Russell Wilson, number 6. I have him at 6. Jason, you got him at 4. Mike at 8. I see all the beautiful things about Russell Wilson. The most beautiful, ever since he came into the league, he finished 10, 8, 3, 3, 11. You've got a top 12 quarterback in Russell Wilson. You got him in the 7th round. You taking Russell Wilson or Andrew Luck right now?
Ooh, probably Luck.
Yeah, I think I'm still on the Luck side, but it's certainly close. I've been a big Russell Wilson supporter forever. It's a matter of their average draft position, really. I mean, I think both those guys are elite, get the job done guys. Both of them finish ahead of Matt Ryan this year. And so whichever one is later, that's the one I would snag.
41 sacks last year, 2nd most in the league. Still managed the 4th most rushing attempts despite the injury to the ankles, but those increased in the second half of the year. Have they done enough to improve his odds of success behind that offensive line? Because if he's having to move the way he had to move last year, propensity to get hurt, having a hard time, having to absorb a lot of sacks, which means some turnovers, have they done anything that gives you a reason to believe that that's changed?
No.
Not on the offensive line.
But,
no.
I mean, he's pretty used to that so far, and it hasn't stopped him from finishing as a top 12 quarterback. Now, last year the beginning of the year was rough, man. If you had invested high in Russell Wilson, and that's another problem with the thing about investing high in these quarterbacks is last year Russell Wilson was probably, if I'm recalling right, like a 4th round pick.
He was going in the 3rd.
I mean, he was very high up in the ADP. You draft him, you spend that draft price on him, you know what he can do. You're stuck. You're playing him every single week. Meanwhile, you see quarterbacks on the waiver wire. You see Brian Hoyer putting up 3 straight 300-yard games, but you can't make that move because you spent a 3rd-round pick.
And that goes with any quarterback you draft in those first 3 rounds.
And that's just another feather in the hat of avoiding the early round quarterbacks. But of course, we talk about these guys because some people want to play the game where they take the quarterback early, and you should know how we feel about these guys because maybe they do start slipping in draft because the name of the game
or you're in a 2-quarterback league, in which case
absolutely
position scarcity.
Saying that the name of the game is not passing on the value of those early wide receivers and running backs. So if you're in a league where everyone's taking a really late quarterback, don't be afraid to draft Aaron Rodgers in the 6th round. Because
I am not afraid.
I'm talking to the people now.
Okay.
I don't want them to think that I'm saying under no circumstances will I draft these guys. It's just about the right time, and usually you're not going to get that.
All right, Mike and I have this next guy at number 7. Jason's got him a little lower. Captain Kirk himself, Kirk Cousins, comes in at number 7 on our consensus rankings last year. Just under 5,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. No more Garcon and Djax. No more Sean McVay at the offensive coordinator position. You bring in Matt Cavanaugh, and you bring in Terrell Pryor. Hopefully, you'll have a healthy Josh Doxson, an ascendant Jamison Crowder. Last year, just to give you the context of how good he was, especially in the second half of the year, 8.1 yards per attempt, 3rd most in the league, almost 5,000 yards, as we said. Interesting stat, though. With Jordan Reed healthy, averaged just under 2 touchdowns a game.
Much better.
Without Jordan Reed, it was 1.17 touchdowns a game, 290 yards a game with Reed versus 253 without. It's not rocket science to say, you got good players, so you have more yards. But it doesn't always equate. You look at Andy Dalton, he actually put up very similar total yardage numbers with or without A.J. Green. But in this situation, a lot of dependency on Reed. I think a lot of that has to do with not having red zone weapons outside of Reed because you had no height with Garcon and Jackson. I combined them right there to Darson, if you notice. But with Pryor and with Doxson, you've got bigger
like they're
guys.
a celebrity couple.
Darson
So,
is gone.
Here's the question I have when it comes to Kirk Cousins. I like Kirk Cousins. I think he is a very good fantasy quarterback and a pretty good real-life quarterback. The question I have, and I know my answer to it, and I think it's different than Andy's answer, so I will ask Mike, is do you think that the receiving weapons that Kirk Cousins has this year, so Terrell Pryor, theoretically a healthy Doxson, Reed, Crowder, do you think those are better or worse than when he had, obviously injured
Darson,
Deshaun Jackson, Pierre Garcon, Jordan Reed? How do you see the pass?
Sure.
Are they an equal, same as last year? Are they better? Are they worse?
I would say that they are, on paper, like as of right now, probably slightly worse. But the ceiling of having Terrell Pryor and Josh Doxson, 2 huge men playing wide receiver, and the improvement of Crowder, now he's the 2, right? They've said that in 2 wide receiver sets, it's going to be Terrell Pryor and Jamison Crowder. And so as long as Josh Doxson can be adequate, then I believe it is actually an upgrade with adding in Terrell Pryor, who's faster than, okay, maybe not fit, but at least as fast as Deshaun Jackson, except a much larger target for Cousins.
I think Deshaun Jackson would take offense to that claim.
Well, of course he would.
I don't think he's as fast as Deshaun Jackson, but he's quick.
It's just whatever.
All right, interesting fact about him. We've talked about the possible what we call positive regression. So what we're saying is an improvement here towards more of an average. If you throw for 5,000 yards, you're expecting more than 25 touchdowns. You saw this with Derek Carr last year. Bad 10-zone touchdown percentage for Cousins. He was 21% of the time. That's 25th out of 26 qualified. So we'd hope that would change, especially with bigger weapons in the red zone. All right, this might be the biggest surprise on our list. Number 8, the Red Rocket.
Ooh.
Andy Dalton.
Red Rifle?
I just called him the Red Rocket, though. That's his nickname.
Yeah, his nickname is the Red Rifle, but we have always nicknamed him the Red Rocket. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah, I believe that's it. I believe
Brooks is nodding. So apparently that's the case.
Now here's the thing. We have him as our consensus number 8 quarterback overall. He is in average draft position. He is the 18th quarterback off the board. So that's
fine. That's fine.
This is why this is why at least we don't draft. Half of these guys we're talking about. I mean, why would I draft Matt Ryan in the 7th when Andy Dalton I think is going to be just as good as Matt Ryan for fantasy, and he is absolutely free. He, as the 18th quarterback off the board, you might not even have him drafted when you're done in your league.
You can't do that because you know that Andy or I will draft him.
Well, sure, yes. We will grab him, as probably the 12th or 13th quarterback off the board in whatever league we're in.
Look, one of the craziest stats about Andy Dalton, and I love him. I have him at 8. That's the highest of the 3 of us. So I absolutely agree with you. I think he's this year's Matt Ryan. Last year, Matt Ryan threw a touchdown every 9 completions. Andy Dalton threw a touchdown every 20 completions. So you're talking about a 2x for Matt Ryan and how efficient he was. Dalton was down in the Case Keenum, Alex Smith range.
And that's not normal.
And it's not. That's the point. It's not normal. And when he has Eifert, the touchdown totals have been much higher, 1.65 TDs with him versus 1.11 without.
Well, he threw a touchdown on 3.2% of his passes last year. His previous 4 years, 5.3. So a huge dip in his normal career trajectory.
Has shown he can finish the season as a top 5 quarterback. In 2013, he was number 5, and in 2015, he was in the top 3 before his injury. And that is what is built into this beautiful draft price, is you have him going in the 12th round, a free quarterback, all the weapons back, A.J. Green, Tyler Eifert, Gio Bernard, now Joe Mixon,
Brandon LaFell and Tyler Boyd are
and John Ross. We don't even talk about John Ross. And so I think he's the best value sleeper, whatever you want to call him, the best quarterback value in all of fantasy football.
When you have to rely on changing pieces that are negative changes, I really don't like. I really don't like when a quarterback has to deal with departures of people they're used to and fresh faces. That's what Dalton had to deal with last year. Last year he had to deal with that when Sanu left and Marvin Jones left. So now he has that rapport built in with Brandon LaFell, with Tyler Boyd. Obviously, he's got it great with A.J. Green and Tyler Eifert. Go ahead and throw in, a couple rookie awesome pass catchers. But he now has a team that he has experience with and an explosive offensive opportunity here. I think I just love when there are noticeable reasons for why he was inefficient last year that are now different for this. Everything lines up for it to be easier to project a step forward for him.
All right, 9 and 10 on the list from our quarterback rankings, first top 10 rankings that we're breaking out. Dak Prescott, Phillip Rivers at 9 and 10. Let's talk about Dak. I mean, it would be unfair of me to look at the season Matt Ryan had and all of the career highs and the weapons and the opportunity that I think he has to not repeat every number, but have a very good fantasy season, and not try to apply some of that logic to Dak Prescott. I mean, you look at third best passer rating in the league, 72% completion percentage, 6 touchdowns for every interception, only 8 turnovers on the year. I mean, that is so impressive for a rookie. Also ran the ball 44 times. My hesitation with Dak has been, look, that efficiency number, we haven't seen it for multiple years. He was fresh into the league. But it's hard to really make an argument against him other than the fact that, look, he didn't have a huge touchdown total, but he got the job done week in and week out. He wasn't giving you number 1, number 2, number 3 quarterback weeks. He was giving you number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8. But he was doing it almost every week. So, look, Mike, you buy in the most. You have him at 9. I have him at 13. Jason right in the middle at 11. I want to hear from Mike, and then we'll move on and we'll talk about Phillip Rivers.
I think that Dak proved it last year. I think he's incredibly smart. He's efficient. And he's the multi-threat quarterback. You can't just worry about keeping Dak Prescott in the pocket, or he's going to make you pay in the running game. He has one of the best wide receivers in football in Dez Bryant. I'm projecting a big step back for Dallas' secondary. So a game script that's not as friendly for Zeke or Darren McFadden for the running game for Dallas. And there were 5 quarterbacks last year who were a QB1 at least 10 or more times. And 4 of those names you would expect to hear. The 5th one you would not expect to hear is Dak Prescott. Now, I hope that Dak can give you more of those boom weeks, more of those top 5, top 3 type of performances, because I think that he is more than capable. He had 6 rushing touchdowns last year, and these were designed runs. This wasn't him scrambling because a play broke down and he made it to the edge and scored. It was a play action read or a read option play, or the second read was to run. So I'm projecting improvement for Dak, and he was tremendous last year.
Let me ask you both this question. Did you adjust Dak Prescott at all with regards to Ezekiel Elliott's 6-game suspension?
Yeah, I did. I took a touchdown away from him, and that moved him down because I had him a little bit higher as well. I do believe that he is a very, very good quarterback, but I think without Zeke there to open things up a little bit more for him, it's going to hurt the offense as a whole, so I took 1 touchdown away.
All right, Phillip Rivers.
I'm taking this.
Number 10. Yeah, you just took it. You just took it away.
Let's see who I'll give it to. Maybe Andy Dalton.
It looks like he gave it to Phillip Rivers.
It's like energy. There's only so many touchdowns in the, in the league.
You have to just distribute 100 touchdowns across all the players. Look, you took it and you gave it to Phillip Rivers because you got him in number 7 on your rankings, which is bold, my friend. I've got him at 12, Mike at 14. It's not like we haven't seen it before, but really hasn't been a top 12 guy since 2013. But I think a lot of fantasy owners don't realize this was a quarterback who last year had 33 touchdowns. I mean, that is number 4 in the league. And I don't think people thought of Phillip Rivers as the number 4 guy in touchdowns, because he had 21 interceptions. I mean, that's
killing you.
Number 1 in the league. He had to do so much. Jason, why do you love Phillip Rivers this season? Because, and I'm curious if you'd take Rivers or you'd take Dalton. Would you rather have Rivers in the 10th round or Dalton in the 12th?
No, I'd probably rather have Dalton in the 12th. I mean, Dalton is
really at that point.
For me, there's a lot of guys in those, I would say 7 through 11 range where the difference to me in having Andy Dalton and Phillip Rivers is nothing. I mean, you might say, oh, well, one is my 7th ranked and one is my 13th ranked, but if you look at the actual points projection, there's almost no difference between a lot of these.
Rivers has a higher grimaces per play.
Oh, man, if you get grimaces per play, Rivers and Eli Manning are first and second rounders
in the grimaces per play.
Yes, for sure. Especially if there's bonus points for blaming passes on your receiving option.
Your gift potential with Rivers is also much higher.
It sure is.
You factor these when you're drafting.
Oh, you have to. You have to know. I mean, what kind of gifts am I going to get?
What kind of memes can come out of this quarterback?
Absolutely, because fantasy football is fun first. So here's the thing with Phillip Rivers. I think last year we saw, because of the decimation of the offense around him, the loss of offensive linemen, the loss of Keenan Allen, the loss of Danny Woodhead. There was just so much that kind of forced Phillip Rivers to play with a brand new team. I was just talking about this. When you see a guy who has a change for his receiving options, and it's for all intents and purposes, a negative change. You're downgrading from what you're used to. He had to figure out how does Tyrell Williams
is blaming those guys.
How does Tyrell Williams run routes? How does Dontrell Inman run routes? How does Travis Benjamin run routes? And all of a sudden you had
Benjamin looked healthy finally.
You had Phillip Rivers go from 13 interceptions the year before to 21 interceptions. A lot of that also was game script, because they had these wacky games last year where they were leading and then all of a sudden the teams were pinning their ears at him and coming after him. I expect the interceptions to go down, and I think that's the biggest change between what caused him, depending on your league. If you play in like we do, where it's -2 points for an interception, I think Phillip Rivers is going to have a pretty big swing this year, because he's got his weapons back, healthy, and another year of rapport with the guys that were new last year.
He's one of my least favorite opponents in fantasy football. I hate playing against teams with Phillip Rivers, because you just never know when he's going to come out and light it up. He's got the ability to do it. Number 1, Aaron Rodgers. Number 2, Andrew Luck. Number 3, Tom Brady. Number 4, Drew Brees. Number 5, Matt Ryan. Number 6, Russell Wilson. Number 7, Kirk Cousins. Number 8, Andy Dalton. Number 9, Dak Prescott. And number 10, Phillip Rivers. And we will be back with more quarterback rankings tomorrow. Little reminder for everybody, The Secret to Victory is a new podcast from Gatorade and Gimlet Creative about how the best athletes in the world use defeat to fuel a win. And this week you'll hear from J.J. Watt, who, by the way, T.J. Watt looked pretty darn good.
Oh, yeah, he did.
J.J. Watt will talk about how he worked his way from college walk-on to NFL Defensive Player of the Year. You can go to Gatorade.com/podcast to listen now or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. A shout-out to the Foot Clan. Thanks to everybody who has subscribed so far to the Fantasy Footballers DFS podcast.
Yeah, baby.
Mike Wright, Ben Cummins, Chris Meany, once a week, all year long, bringing you DFS for the rest of us. The best DFS tips, tricks, information, predictions for each and every week. Every Friday that podcast is going to come out, and you can get that on iTunes. You can get that on Google Play. And I can tell you, outside looking in at this thing, the production quality is what you've come to expect from a Fantasy Footballers podcast. A lot of time and effort have gone into that, and we know you love DFS out there. So those that do, or those that are just breaking in,
yeah, please,
check it out.
If you've never played DFS, listen to this show, and we'll get you right in there, kicking booty, taking names.
Any parting words for the Foot Clan guys? Anything you want to remember? I'll remind you, footclangiveaway.com if you want to enter the David Johnson helmet contest.
I want to remind people about the live show, my man.
Okay.
We're doing a live show, the podcast. We're doing it live in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
On
September 4th.
September 4th.
Tickets now
Labor
available.
Day. The tickets are available now at ballerslive.com. Come hang out. It's going to be oodles and caboodles
Of fun.
Of noodles and fun.
You'll get your questions answered
Yeah,
in
answer
person.
questions, get a hug, get a whatever, man. We're
We'll
going to hang
give
out.
Mike some medicine. He'll be a little more calm at the event.
You can't hold me down.
I know.
All
Check
right.
out playdraft.com/ballers. If you're looking to play some best ball, some DFS each and every week, we love the guys over there. Playdraft.com/ballers.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.